Ivan here from ForwardMuscle.com, and today we're working on Project Apex, our road racing 2001 Mustang Cobra. In this episode, we're going to be installing a Maximum Motorsports IRS grip package. This is their Super Street and Competition package, part number 21.5. This is something that I'm really looking forward to because it is going to get rid of all the inherent issues that the factory 99 through 04 Mustang IRS or independent rear end suspension system has. So we're going to eliminate all the rubber and replace it with poly and or Delrin, and then we're going to include some hind joints. And here are the parts laid out on my toolbox here. So this is a polyurethane differential mount. This is the rear mount. We got the front ones. We've also got the lower control arm hardware, and these are the lower control arms. These are going to be replaced with Delrin bushings. They also send you the tool in the kit, which is awesome. Got the upper control arm Delrin bushings and needed hardware. This is one of the most important pieces of the entire kit. It's actually their tow rod and or bump steer kit for the rear of the Mustang, and it allows you to dial in the bump steer, which is really, really important because these cars are known for, with the factory tow rods, they're known for oversteer if you're trail braking into a corner. So I'm really excited about this because it's one of my biggest complaints with this car, currently. Some more fixtures and or tools to press out some of the factory bushings. We've got the subframe hardware here, and then sway bar end links. They send you a nice set of sway bar end links. The end link is in here. This is the adjustable hardware. Cross axis joints, we're going to replace those too. These are Maximum Motorsports design with the pliers needed to get them in. Again, a tool to get them in. I decided to go ahead and build a brand new differential with the right gear set that I wanted and a different diff. So we're going away, or we're actually going to a 373 gear ratio versus the 355 that's in there right now. I think it'll put me in a better RPM range at Barber Motorsports Park. This is also a Torsen differential. I actually ordered all these parts through Ford Performance Parts. They carry the differential itself, they carry the gear sets, they carry the entire list of bearings and bushing, or bearings and seals to get the carrier itself rebuilt. And then we're ditching this factory rear cover with this Ford Racing piece, again from the Ford Performance catalog. It has the bearing supports, also has a upper fill plug, another fill plug, and then it's got a drain plug if you need it, and then another access point. So the beauty of this is that if you decide that you want to run a diff cooler, you can use this, and you can use these ports to plumb it. I just got the IRS assembly out of the Mustang today. This core hanging out. Here it is. So this, if you were not aware, this is a 03, or actually an 04 Cobra IRS that I swapped in because this car had so many miles on it that the IRS assembly that came out of this car was really, really worn. So instead of rebuilding, I found a low mileage unit and swapped it in the car to get it going. One of the biggest complaints, like I mentioned earlier, is these factory tie rod end bushings, or let's call them just tie rod ends in general. They really mess with the bump steer, and the factory bump steer is non-adjustable. So being able to adjust and tune in the bump steer with the Maximum Motorsports bump steer kit is really going to allow me to have a lot more confidence going into these corners at high speed and not have to deal with oversteer. Just came out today. I'm going to tear it apart, disassemble it, clean it, and then get to work on putting it back together. As I move through some of the installation, I'll bring you guys in and I'll kind of show you where I'm at and maybe show you what I find. I don't know. The front end had a lot of torn bushings. I'm not really sure what I'm going to find back here. This is a pretty low mile IRS. I think it only had 30,000 miles on it. So not really expecting any big surprises. Not much rust in the bolts, which is exciting. So yeah, I'm gonna get to work, and then I'll check in with you guys in a couple of days once I get some progress done on this thing. All right, see ya. All right, so I've gotten the IRS torn down, and I wanted to give everybody an update real quick on where I'm at and kind of what I'm working on today in the garage. It's a nice, beautiful, sunny day, and I figured why not get out here and tear the entire IRS assembly down and then show you guys kind of what the next steps are. So step number one is actually start to the freezer. So in Maximum Motorsports instructions, they say to freeze the Delrin bushings So that way they shrink a little bit and they're a little bit easier to install in the control arm. Last time you saw this thing was completely assembled. So now I've got it torn down. It's cleaned up a little bit. This side I left assembled because I want to show you guys the difference between the Maximum Motorsports parts and the factory parts once I get them installed. These control arms right now are so stiff, they don't even want to move up and down. Everything really looked good. I took a look at the bushings. No real visible rips in the bushings and stuff. So this thing was in great shape. Like I said, I think it had 30-something thousand miles when I bought it. But I did also pull the diff out. I wanted to show you guys the differential and the difference between the Torsen I mentioned earlier and the factory style diff. So check this out. So this is what was in the car, okay? This is a factory style diff that comes from Ford. They put this in the majority of their 8.8 differentials, and this is what they call a T-lock diff. It uses clutch packs on the outer sides and this spring and gear set in there. So it does its best to apply torque to the wheel that has the most traction, right? It does a decent job, but it's not that great. You can see a big difference between the Torsen, which I'm gonna be using. The Torsen uses helical gear sets, and this is a TR2R Torsen. It's a 4:1 bias ratio. So this thing is working very, very hard all the time to deliver the most torque possible to both wheels, not just the one that has the most traction, to both wheels. So this is a really nice differential. Ford uses this in I believe most of the GT500s, the Laguna Seca 302, the Boss 302 in 13 to 14, and then you also get this in the Boss, or in the factory Ford race cars. So it's a really nice high dollar piece, but it's designed for guys that really want the most performance, you know, on the autocross or the road course like what we're doing. So I'm gonna get to work, start tearing on the control arms, getting the factory bushings out, and then when I get one out, I'll update you guys again, all right? So, all right, I wanted to show you real quick the difference between the Delrin that I installed in these control arms on this passenger side of the car versus the factory OEM rubber, and how much easier these move up and down. So literally 2 fingers, this goes up and down very freely. Same with this control arm. 2 fingers, just pivots, doesn't bind. So this is the factory stuff. The factory stuff binds a ton, listen. And I had to put a lot of force on this to get it to move. Even the bottom one, it hardly moves, it just binds. And I'm literally frying up on this thing. So, there you go. All right, so the IRS is getting ready to go back in the car. It's all done. I got the front differential mount bushings in. I got the sway bar end links in. Got the upper control arm, Delrin bushings installed. Got the lower control arms installed as well, like I mentioned in the last video, and shimmed. I also did the cross axis joints, both top and bottom. Those are both installed. Just finished up installing the adjustable tow rod kit so we can dial in the bump steer curve, which is gonna be awesome. Got this Ford Performance differential cover installed, adjusted and set. So I'm getting ready to put this thing back in the car. I'll update you guys once I swing it under the car. All right, later. Okay, so I'm back here. I got the IRS back in the car. It's under the car. And right now I've got this contraption set up. This is Maximum Motorsports bump steer gauge. So what this does is this allows you to dial in the bump steer curve based on the wheel travel up, which is bump, and then down, which is droop. So essentially what happens is with an independent rear end, you have the toe. If this isn't dialed in, the toe will change as the wheel travels up and down, and it'll toe in or out. And if you don't dial it in to actually cooperate and be within the specs that you want, you'll have some really weird instability as you're loading up the suspension under braking and in cornering and etc. So this is one of the most crucial parts of getting the most performance out of your independent rear end in any vehicle, but most specifically here we're talking about the 99 through 04 Mustang Cobra with the independent rear. So I've got all the Maximum Motorsports stuff installed, but now I'm dialing it in. So as you can see, this gauge is 2 pieces.
right? You got the backing plate that attaches to the hub, and then you got to make sure that it stays level. You've got a dial gauge right here that measures the amount of toe in or toe out, depending on the ride height that's outlined right here, okay? And it's outlined on both sides. This is the adjuster that essentially keeps the distance the same as it travels up and down. So this is really set up. It's a very easy kit from Maximum Motorsports. It does take a little bit of time to really understand how you need to work this, how to set it up and how to get going. But once you get going, it's much easier. And essentially what you do is you use this area right here on the toe link in the rear that I showed you earlier, where you're shimming those spacers. You're moving that toe rod up and down depending on what the readings are, so that way you get the toe as close to zero as possible as the wheel travels up and down. So time-consuming process. It took me about a day to dial this in because I've never done it before. But from my understanding is it's going to change the performance of this car. It's going to be the biggest upgrade that we've done so far, according to some of my buddies and what the guys at Maximum Motorsports say, to the rear end of the vehicle and how it handles. So I'm pumped. I cannot wait to try this out. But yeah, I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to finish this up. I got to put the springs back in it, attach the sway bar end links, and then I'll catch you guys later. So I'm sitting here in line to get tech inspected, and I'm here with the PCA. This should be an interesting weekend. Check this out. All Porsches. Wish me luck.
right, sitting here, finishing up the weekend at Barber Motorsports Park. I wanted to just do a quick track recap. I'll go over the data later with the Garmin, but just sitting here and kind of packing the car up and getting ready to go. Had a pad failure yesterday. For some reason, I went through a set of pads really quickly, and it boiled the fluid. So I had 2 sessions today, put on a spare set of pads that are like endurance pads. They didn't last either. Boiled the fluid again after 2 sessions. So calling it quits, but I did end up with a new personal best. I think it was like a 140.7 or 141.7, and then my optimal lap showed to be in the 140s, which is substantially faster than the last track outing. But I wanted to show you guys the Cobra real quick before I head out here. Check this out.
These tires have been holding up great, but I tell you what, the brakes are just getting wrecked, even with the cooling. I think we're at the limit here. So just signing off. I'll see you guys later.